Hi, that was a very interesting capsule. Now, for the space and technology part, we have with us the engineer Oscar Fonseca, and he will talk about the exploration that is taking the NASA and their new rockets. So what have you to say, Oscar?
Thank you, Emilio. Well, at the core of NASA's future space exploration is a return to the moon. So, where we build a sustainable long-term human presence, as the International Space Station, for example, but this is gonna be in the moon, over the core of the moon. As space shuttle approaches retirement and the International Space Station nears completion, NASA is building the next fleet of vehicles to bring astronauts back to the moon and possibly to Mars and beyond. Because you know we have already found water on the moon.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Yeah, so we want to go beyond that. With water on the moon, we can have a sustainable better and then go with another rocket specialized for that to go to Mars. So it will be pretty much difficult to have it from Earth than from the moon where is no atmosphere. So the capsule, for example, is Orion. America will send a new generation of explorers to the moon aboard NASA Orion's Crew Exploration Vehicle, making its first flights to the International Space Station early in the next decade. Orion is part of the Constellation program to send human explorers back to the moon and then onward to Mars and other destinations in the solar system. So this is a capsule that is gonna return to Earth. It's like the Saturn V, which went above all the rockets. This is Orion, and it's gonna have 2 solar panels to have energy from the sun. The Ares first is developing hardware and systems for the rocket that will send future astronauts into orbit. Built on cutting-edge launch technologies involve powerful Apollo and space shuttle propulsion elements and decades of NASA spaceflight experience. Ares first is the essential core of a safe, reliable, cost-effective space transportation system. One that will carry crewed missions back to the moon, onto Mars, and into the solar system. This is the rocket that will have the Orion crew vehicle above it, instead of the Saturn V that we were using on the Apollo program 50 years before. Ares first is an inline 2-stage rocket configuration topped by the Orion crew vehicle and its launch abort system. In addition to the vehicle's primary mission carrying crews to 4 to 6 astronauts to Earth orbit, Ares first may also use its 25-ton payload capacity to deliver resources and supplies to the International Space Station or to park payloads in orbit for retrieval by other spacecraft found on the moon or other destinations. So in its payload we'll have, for example, the lunar rovers that are developing in Arkansas with the Jet Propulsion Laboratory of California. And during the launch, the first stage booster powers the vehicle toward lowered orbit. In mid-flight, the reusable booster is spread from the upper stage G to X in giant ignites, putting the vehicle into a circular orbit. This first stage is the extra boosters that we have in the space shuttle now, which are separated and reused. This is gonna be bought with the first stage of this rocket, Ares first. The crew transportation to the International Space Station is planned to begin no later than 2014. The first lunar excursion is scheduled for the 2020 timeframe. The Ares 5, in other plan, is the early design that underway for hardware propulsion systems associated with technologies for NASA Ares 5 cargo launch vehicle. This heavy lifter of America's next generation space fleet. Ares 5 will serve as a NASA primary vessel for safe, reliable delivery of large-scale hardware to space. From the lunar landing craft and other materials for establishing a moon base to food, fresh water, and other staples needed to extend a human presence beyond the orbit. This is a shuttle that is going to go to the moon to deliver all the cargo systems, like for example the lunar lander, the systems of the rovers, the lunar rovers, also that are in the Ares first. But here, the Ares 5, it doesn't have crew. Instead, it has all payload and a lot more capacity. It's gonna be pretty much tall than the Apollo program that today is the taller spacecraft ever built by the human. Under the goals of NASA exploration mission, Ares 5 is a virtual plant of the cost-effective space transportation infrastructure being developed by the NASA Constellation program to carry human explorers back to the moon and then onward to Mars and other destinations in the solar system. The Ares 5 effort includes multiple hardware and propulsion elements by NASA. and the contractor organizations around the nation that is led by the Aerox Projects Office at NASA Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, Alabama. These teams rely on nearly a half-century of NASA spaceflight experience and aerospace technology advances. Together they are developing new vehicle hardware and flight systems and manufacturing technologies involved from powerful, proven Saturn rocket and spatial propulsion elements and knowledge. So this is coordinated by a lot of space centers, but basically in the Marshall Space Center in Alabama, the United States. So what do you think about it?
Well, it sounds really kind of science fiction, but I think that's...
It's actually possible.
Yes,
Yeah.
I know because all the technology is now going that far. Maybe on a few years we are going to be living up there in the moon, or even in Mars.
Of course, it's gonna be like that. And the last part of this program is the Altair. The Altair has the name of the lunar lander that the Constellation program will use to land explorers to the moon. Altair will be capable for landing 4 astronauts on the moon, providing life support and a base for week-long initial surface exploration missions, and returning the crew to the Orion spacecraft that will bring them home to Earth. Altair will launch aboard RS-5 rockets into lower orbit, and it will join the Orion crew vehicle. So as you see, above the RS-5 rocket that is going to be taller than the Apollo program, it's going to be the Altair, and the Altair will join with the Orion crew vehicle in space, on the atmosphere, and with a fuel that it has, it's going to go to the moon, to the orbit of the moon, and the Orion is going to stay there, and the Altair lunar lander is going to go down to the moon, Earth. So it is a base like the Apollo Eagle, and they will live there for a week, and they will turn on up to the atmosphere of the moon that is much like no atmosphere, but it like if it was the atmosphere.
Well, that was really interesting, and well, that was the end of the program. And this was HD News. He's Oscar Fonseca, an engineer from the NASA, and your new Espindola. Thank you.
Thank you.